there, it's Alan Herrity from Momentum Search and Selection. We're just about to record another one of our Momentum interviews, and I'm really pleased to be joined today by Daniel Pludek. Daniel, how are you going?
Good, Alan. It's good to see you again.
Yeah, it's been a little while, so thanks so much for taking the time out of your busy agenda today. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to introduce the theme of today's interview and make an introduction regarding yourself.
Absolutely.
Excellent. So today we're going to delve into the topic of AI. There's a lot of talk globally about this topic. So we're going to talk about the use of AI to drive efficiency. And as an introduction, I'd describe you as an accomplished technology transformation executive with 25 years of experience in the US, Europe, and Australia. You're currently the Chief Information Officer at Kip McGrath Education Centres. And also you have a board member role at Tutorfly. And in addition to this, you run an advisory service business in cybersecurity, GRC, and IT architecture. So I hope I'm summing up your profile well.
No, that's a great summary. I should get you to do it more often.
Yeah, absolutely. I worked on that one. And thanks, Daniel. Okay, what we're going to talk about today is AI and how you've used this to drive efficiency at Kip McGrath, both internally and for your customers. So I do have 3 questions for you today. So the first question, which I'm really interested to understand, is what are some of the key challenges which you look to address at Kip McGrath Education with regards to the use of AI or potential use of AI?
So I'll take a slightly different take on that question, because when we started, we weren't looking to address challenges of AI. We were actually just looking to address challenges.
Right.
And the first challenge we were looking to address was how do we improve our communications to all of our stakeholders, because it took quite considerable effort at the end of each session to summarise a session and get those communications out to all of the relevant parties. We also had a number of other processes which we might touch on with some of the other questions later once I find out what they are. But with that problem in mind, what we really started doing was try to understand what was the cost to the business. How much time is it taking? Is it distracting to the staff members? Is it adding real value to the staff members? Whereas we knew it added value to the end stakeholder, but for a staff member, could they use their time better? We did look at things such as process automation, writing the communications outside of hours. So AI was just one of the options we looked at. Now, the more we looked at using or leveraging AI for this, the more it became apparent it would actually add value for us. Mm-hmm. Through that research, we also started looking at other things we could leverage AI for. So other inefficiencies within the business, but also other innovations where we can actually use it to drive additional revenue. And from that, we actually created a bit of a hit list, with the first use case being what we anticipated was the easiest use case to prove value to the organisation.
Yeah.
And then once we did that, it was then a matter of looking at the different AI models. Do you self-host? Do you use a public model? Do you have time to train it? How much will hosting cost? Mm. But the initial assessment was really around those areas within a business that are taking a lot of time and costing a lot of money.
Okay, no, very, very interesting. So that segues nicely into my second question, which is, what did you and the team address in terms of challenges of the, you looked at the approach, the prioritization, and the AI solution. So what specific areas did you address?
So initially we had a very low maturity. It was just pure research. So we did go out and talk to a number of partners to work out what was possible. At the time, it appeared that it was actually quite immature across the board. So even the partners who were specialising in AI had a very specific take. So when we discussed prioritisation, our focus was really on what do we think is the easiest use case that will get the biggest bang for buck.
Yeah.
It was that communications aspect for us, but the challenge was, how do we get the communications to sound like they are written by a human, very consistent, and they're repeatable? And based on that, we then really looked at the market, and it was a lot of trial and error and about 6 months of playing with different models, different scenarios. It's largely accepted that AI is about 80% accurate, so you've always got that 20%. And I caught up for Contact yesterday, and it was quite funny because they were telling me how they were catfished by AI. So AI kept promising them that it could write an application for them, and they would believe it. It will take some time, and then I'd check in and it says, yes, we're working on it. And still nothing. And day 2, they're still waiting for this application to be developed, and it's still nothing. And then the AI offered to SMS them, and they were waiting for an SMS, not realizing how the AI wouldn't have their phone number. So there is that big lack of understanding across a lot of the market. So the approach was really to work out what's real, what's not.
Yeah.
How can we leverage it? How can we implement it? And one of the biggest factors for me was, what would it actually cost us to run? Because if we don't have tangible savings by running it, there's no point in progressing with it. And what we found with the first iteration of the solution is it worked really well. It was running live, which wasn't necessarily required, but because it was running live, it was taking a bit of time to generate the content, which then resulted in staff having to sit there and wait for 45 seconds to 2 minutes, and then it would go out. So then it was a matter of fine-tuning. So no, it didn't have to go live. So why don't we batch job it at night? Therefore, it's completely seamless. By doing that, we could also save on costs significantly. So the end result was we were able to implement a number of guardrails and a lot of prompt engineering to make sure the quality was good. And we're able to get it on a cost base where you're taking 15 minutes of an FTE per student per session. We run 2.1 million sessions a year. And with the AI running it as a batch job overnight, it costs approximately 4 cents to generate that same communication.
Oh, wow.
Based on that use case and its adoption in market, we were then able to look at what are our next priorities, and we started to roll out more and more products based on that. But it was always with a prioritization of, will it add benefit? Will it save time? Is it cheaper to operate? And will it benefit the end customer?
Okay, really interesting. So that does bring me to my final question, actually, in terms of the benefits and obviously what you can comfortably disclose. What have been the key benefits of the work so far for KIP McGrath Education and your customers?
So that was the first example. What we have been able to do since then is our guardrails have become much better over time as we have learned and developed. So we now have our solutions running at about a 99% accuracy. So that now allows us to generate curriculum. So we can generate state-specific curriculum, country-specific curriculum. And once we solved that problem, and now we can generate a full curriculum in about 8 hours, whereas traditionally it could take years with multiple staff.
Yeah.
Not only that, we've been able to put new products into the market, and by not having to have people support those products, we're able to get a bit of a benefit where we can provide support to, for example, schools in the US under Tutorfly, where they might not necessarily have access to teaching assistants. So now we're in pilot where they're using an AI teacher as a teacher's assistant within the class. And what it does is it allows a child to get help as they need it. It never gives them the answer. We have very strict guardrails in place to ensure that child protection practices are there, the answers and responses the AI is giving them is helpful. But if a child still doesn't understand, the child's quite comfortable in being able to ask for that help, and it will continually simplify the questions for them. And that in itself is now allowing us to create additional products to serve our customers, but also give our customers more ways in which they can learn that meets their needs. So it's allowed the organisation to be a lot more customer-centric. The bigger benefit of that too is we can now, in the future, we'll be able to offer it at different price points as well, because depending on how a child likes to learn or how a parent can learn, you can supplement our traditional methods with the AI. So we have a lot of opportunity now where we can create new products, get better in analytics and analysis, and also do things we couldn't do before. So, for example, we are rolling out in Texas at the moment. A lot of the students in the school districts we operate in are not native English speakers. They're typically Spanish households, and they can interact with the AI in Spanish, and it will actually explain the question to them in English, so nothing is lost in translation. And that is both verbal communication, so they can talk to the AI, the AI can talk back, as well as type. So there's a lot of flexibility of how they can interact, and our data to date, although we are still in pilot, is actually really promising at how well they are engaging with the AI teachers.
Wow, that's really interesting. This is such a fascinating topic, and I know we've only just begun to scratch the surface, and you've been very kind in talking to me about the things which you can talk about. So thanks so much for taking your time to talk to me today. And that does almost conclude the Momentum interview. If people want to connect with you and talk more about this topic, Daniel, what's the best way for them to reach you?
LinkedIn is the best way. I've got a unique name, so I'm quite easy to find. But I am really passionate about the topic, so I'm more than happy to help people and chat to them.
Fantastic. Well, thanks again for your time today. We really appreciate it, and I'll certainly speak to you soon.
Thanks, Alan. Good to see you.
Likewise.